Hi, welcome to Live Right Tonight. I'm your host, Brandi, and here I have Christian with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing phenomenal. Thank you very much.
So, Christian, you are living in
Utah, Southern
Oklahoma.
Utah.
I don't know why I want to say Oklahoma.
Yeah.
First, I started off with California. I'm getting closer, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Utah.
Practice.
Okay. So, can you please tell me a little bit about yourself?
Oh, that's my favorite topic. I'm just kidding. Uh no, I got clean August 19th, 2017, 41 years old. I mean, up until that point, up until the moment that I got clean, it was obviously the usual wreckage, um, failed opportunities, letting family down consistently, nobody wanting to be around me. And then I was blessed with an opportunity to change the way that I got clean was a little bit different than a lot of folks because it felt like, at least in this community, that the explosion of treatment centers had yet to really happen. They're all over the place now, but I was just sitting on a couch and I was at some friends' house, and it was like nobody really wanted me there, but I was just sitting there, and it was like, well, I got to go out and do all the things that I do to, the getting, using, finding, and all of that aspect. And then I got fortunate because a voice just in my head said, hey, it's if you walk out the door this time, you're probably, something's going to happen that you might not easily be able to turn back from. And I've had a pretty good run overall. Like, I had about 7 felony charges in 4 different states, but I am not a felon, um, for various different reasons. Like, I wouldn't get caught red-handed or something like that, but I had enough charges where it was like the judges were just tired of me. And so every time I would go to court for something small, they would look at my record and be like, I'd get the maximum sentence on like a small misdemeanor or something like that.
Okay.
So what I had to do at that time was, we didn't have all the treatment centers around, so I called. The only thing that I knew to do was to claim to be suicidal, because they would lock you up for 4 days or a week or something like that, and feed you and send you out on your way. And I felt like that was all that I needed for to get clean. Um, so I did that part. Called a friend in the middle of the night, and he was about 45 minutes away, and I was like, hey, I need you to help me sell this to the hospital. Like, you found me, I'm writing a suicide note, all this scenario. He's like, are you sure, dude? Like, you really need a ride right now? So picks me up, takes me in there, and that was what began the journey. But that's, I like motorcycles, I like recovery, I love recovery, and I love motorcycles. And life's good. I travel around the country a lot, as required for the industry that I work in. And that's really all I can summarize about myself, I guess.
Okay. Now, I reached out to you months back, and you are in a group called F.A.M.E RC, which is a motorcycle recovery group.
Correct.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that. How did that come about?
So I myself was always inspired by motorcycles and motorcycle groups. Before I got clean this time, I was court ordered clean a time before, and there was guys that I would see going to the meetings, and they would be riding up on together as like a pack of motorcycles, and that's what I wanted. I saw that and I said, that's what I want my recovery to look like, someday. Because everybody's happy. I mean, it's hard to be unhappy when you're out riding around
Right.
with your friends. So I was the seed, I guess, was planted at that point. And there'd been a lot of variations, like as far as what the organization was intended to be throughout that process. But God, put it in front of me when it was those same guys that I would watch ride to the meetings. They're now a part of the club.
Oh, I
So
love it.
yeah, and when we get into recovery, we do the suggestions based off of whatever form of recovery or fellowship that we're participating in, right? And I'm one of those types of individuals that I always have to feel like I'm advancing. I have a hard time just sitting in the moment and being like, okay, we made it, everybody. Like, let's kick our feet up.
Right.
Um, and I didn't have a motorcycle at this time. One of my close friends, shout out to Chaos, he bought a motorcycle, and like, all right, we've been talking about this long enough, so we all had motorcycles within like a week. And then we just started going through the channels, the club realm in the motorcycle culture is a fairly complex structure of things that you have to go through for validation and recognition as a legitimate club and things like that. But we took care of all of that. That was in 2020, and it's just been smooth sailing ever since.
That's awesome. So, what do you guys like? What is some of the things that you guys do with this club? Like, how does besides riding together and you all are with sobriety together, what other actions do you guys take to help the recovery community or even be known to the recovery community?
We do definitely do a lot of exposure. What we do is usually events. They're not marketed within the local fellowships, but they're marketed to members of the fellowship, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Um, just because the branding conflicts and everything like that. But we show up to all the conventions and do all of that and participate in different events with that as an organization. Again, that's kind of a tricky line to explain because we don't go like to a convention and try to promote our club, right? But we go out and support what they're doing as opposed to promoting ourselves, right?
Right.
So we do a lot of that, which gets us the exposure in the recovery community. And then we do things to help addicts that doesn't matter what stage of their recovery they're in, whether they're in their first day. We do fundraisers that put people in, take them off the street and put them in a sober house or into treatment centers or into
Wow.
detox centers. And then sober living scholarships to get people off the street. Clothing sometimes will help, somebody has an injury, they're struggling with their bills or something like that. We'll band together a little bit and see what we can do to support them in those areas. People that are doing the right thing, just circumstances happen where life gets hard sometimes, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. When are you guys coming to Michigan?
Nah, when it warms up, maybe.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want to be coming out here right now. Um, so you guys just did a poker run, did you not? I thought I seen that on your site.
Yes, we did. And I was staying in Florida at the time. I did come home for that poker run. That was one of our acquaintances in the addict community. They have a child that is got a syndrome called 1D3 deletion syndrome,
Yep.
and that was more of a support base as a like a lot of the things that we do, like our support gear doesn't say like support F.A.M.E, it says support local recovery, right? Things like that. That was more about supporting somebody that is in recovery that has family close to him that have a monumental thing that they're trying to overcome, right? So um, that poker run was to send the parents to a conference in Denver, Colorado, so that they can connect with different doctors and medical professionals and get resources on caring for a child with that syndrome.
Okay. I love it. I love it. I love that you guys are out there helping and you guys are a team together. That's awesome. So with you, Christian, like where besides like you did say that you had that moment, that epiphany moment, like when you were at your friend's house, if you walked out, that you weren't coming back. Do you feel like that was your like
Higher power?
not higher power, but do you feel like that was your what is the word I'm looking for? Like the absolute end of your addiction? Like what made you hit that rock bottom? Like
Yeah, so and that's a good question. I mean, in my addiction, I had a bit of ego, I guess you would say. The reason why is because I separated myself when I was in my addiction from what everybody else was, right? Because there's a lot of people that were, came from really rough backgrounds and just had a hard run at life. What would happen to me is I would be really successful. I would start using, and then it would all crumble down and fall apart. And there was something about that in my mind that made me feel like I was different from everybody else that was struggling with the exact same thing. But I separated myself, and that was a form of denial, right, that I allowed myself. But when I was sitting on the couch at that moment, and granted, at least I was in the room with three people at the time. One of them is dead for sure. The other one, nobody knows where they're at. And then there was a second person that found recovery. But my point to all of that is that when I was there, there was a realization that said, like, literally nobody wants me around. I was usually the person that was kind of helping everybody out or taking care of people or providing resources for this, that, or the other. And when I was sitting on that couch, and it's like I was just tired. Right? I was really, really, really tired, and my level of exhaustion is had reached its peak. And I knew that there was nothing left for me in that realm because some of us, definitely myself, when when I started using, there was a vision, right, that said, if I can only get to this point, everything's going to be gravy, right? Everything's all the way good. And it took me a lot of years to get there, right? I mean, the drug dealing and the all of the unlimited supplies and stuff like that. It took me a long time to get there, but I did eventually get there. And I was the most miserable that I'd ever been in my life when I got to that point, right? So it was like it wasn't all that it cracked up to be. But naturally, when we're active in our addiction like that, it's not like we say, "Well, this isn't all it cracked up to be. I'm going to try something else now." I mean, I rode that out for another year and a half, 2 years, as that foundation slowly started to crumble. Like people that I was partner with got clean and went on different journeys. And uh, I like the getting, using, finding required so much. Like it didn't matter what amount of anything that I got. I had to pay for a couch to sit on. I had to pay for every ride that I got. I had to pay for everything that I ate and probably three or four people that were around me, so on and so forth. So it was an unsustainable life. And when I would go out, when I would get to the end of whatever was going on, I would go out and do all the bad stuff that can get you in a lot of trouble, to get used and find, right? So I I just was completely exhausted and tapped out. And I took I was an addict of many things. One of the things was opiates, and then I'd taken the maintenance maintenance stuff, right? So withdrawal stuff to avoid withdrawals, and it didn't even take the edge off at all at that point. And when usually like if I would take 25 to 50% of what I'd taken at that moment, I would feel like I'd feel fine, right? This time I took 100% more than what I would usually take, and it didn't even take the edge off. That also played a part because I knew that I was in trouble. Like my habit and my way that I'm living right now, it's just getting too
Right,
much.
right. Now, with all that being said, and you having a little over
6 years.
6 years, you're almost 7 years in
Yeah.
August. Now, when you finally got into recovery, because I know so many people that they still struggle, and I know people that have years of sobriety and there's still triggers out there. Now, what I want to know is what was making you stay instead of going back out? And what are the tools that you use on a daily basis to continue your sobriety?
Well, there's a lot of variables to that. I mean, I'll make the answer as short as I can. When I got out of the hospital, what happened is they they told me they told me okay, hey, there's this place down in Phoenix, Arizona, right? They let everybody walk through the door. It's like kind of it's a treatment center. You don't have to do anything. You wash cars like twice a month, and that's how you pay your way. And I was like, well, that sounds easy enough, right? So from the B-Med, the behavioral medicine place, I went from there to Phoenix. I get to Phoenix and it was the exact opposite of what they told me, right? I walk in there and it was a halfway house. There's 150 residents. They all got face tattoos and, are fresh out of prison, right? Yeah. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah. And so, which is, I mean, I have a lot of friends like that. I mean, it's not a judgment thing. It was just not what I was expecting,
Right.
right?
You were expecting something different.
I was expecting like those TV commercials, where they're like, hey,
Right.
come do yoga
Rainbows
with
on the
us.
wall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I was excited. We're gonna eat good. We're gonna do all, yoga. We're gonna walk the beaches in Phoenix, whatever,
Right.
uh, which there's none, of course. But
No.
so that was a 90-day program. And it wasn't a forced treatment center. I had to kind of fight my way through that. It was, kind of like a, hey, you're here for 90 days. Um, do whatever you're gonna. We don't really care either way. Like you're either gonna get it or you're not gonna get it. So fast forward after that 90 days, I get back here. So now I've got 34 days clean. And I had to fight for everything. Again, I'm used to making a survivable amount of money, right? Like where I don't have to stress on like monthly bills. I mean, sometimes things get harder than others, but ultimately it's like my life is manageable financially. When I got back here though, I had nothing at all. Like I had like two pairs of clothes. I had to ask friends like, hey, there's this $7 pair of shorts over here, buy me a $7 pair of shorts. Start slowly accumulating everything. I'd got a job, and the first job that I'd got was very, very low paying. Like the minimum wage in Utah is only like $7.25, right? So doing that, barely making it. I made like 60, $70 above my rent every month at first as I was clawing my way back. Throughout that process, I was trusting the process, right? And when we look over recovery, we often say things like, I can figure this out. I've got my way and my way works and I know what I need to do. I and I've done that before, right? Because this wasn't my first time getting clean. Previously, it was court ordered, but this time it was me
It's you.
choosing. Yeah. And so I just said, I don't know anything about anything, and I need to figure out how to actually live, not like how to make money so that I can look cool on Facebook or something like that, but how to actually be a part of the community, how to connect with people, how to be
Live
of
in
service.
society.
Yes, yes, how to be of service to society, how to do all the things that actually make a difference as opposed to, I made this much money this week. Because that was about the extent of my knowledge of how to live. Because if I made money during a certain week, I can deal with anything as long as money's coming in, right? But it's really easy to get on a castle on top of the hill, sitting alone in your misery, right? All that you have to identify yourself with is
Mhm.
that. So through following the suggestions of what I predecessors before me had said, this is what's worked for us. These guys got 15, 20 years um, of staying clean. They've got the lives that I want to live. And I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about anything. Show me what to do and I'll do it. And I made my mistakes along the way for sure. Um, but the 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 process changes a little bit as you progress, or as I've progressed, and I say you a lot, but as we progress, as I progress, whatever. Um, because when we first get into recovery, we get the pink cloud that, right? We get the,
Wow.
hey, everybody look at me like I'm doing good now. I've gone to 3 meetings in a row, and everybody's cheering for you and happy for you, and you're picking up 30-day tags or whatever it is that looks like for you. Well, you fast forward to 3 or 4 years, which was the time we started the club at about 4 years. I was about uh, just under 3 years when we started the club. That's where recovery started to get a challenge because I reached a stagnant point, right? And so the club was a way of advancing that and progressing my recovery, which for most recovery, the desire is, or the requirement is simply a desire, right? All you got
Right.
to do is want to stop, right? And that's good. That's exactly what that should be. So in the club, though, as people make mistakes, and we understand that, but we've had to fight, right? Because for the branding of being a recovery club, when you start a motorcycle club, the cops, the community, oh great, these guys been watching Sons of Anarchy, whatever, right? Like, um,
Here we
and
go.
yeah, here we go, just what we need, and we're loud and we're kind of obnoxious and we're, so all of that. But see, a requirement to stay in the club is you have to be clean. If somebody falls off, they get the support, they get the love, and they get a pathway back into it. They're not exiled. But for me, when everything else fails, when my head is full of just poison and self-doubt and insecurities, um, I have the club, and I know that maintaining membership in the club is extremely crucial for me in my recovery. And I'm also surrounded by a very strong group of men that I can get honest with and say, like, I'm struggling in this area, that area, and it's real. I don't have to put a mask on. And that's what gives me the ability to maintain, because life is hard, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
it's the pink cloud wears off, and then we start having to deal with all the real problems that faces life, health issues, people dying. These days, all of our friends are dying, right? I
Yep.
mean, at like a record pace. I mean, I
Yeah. It's getting ridiculous.
yeah, like my first year in recovery, like I stopped counting at like 30 deaths. And we don't live in a huge community, right? It was like 30 people died. I stopped counting. And now it's just like we've almost desensitized to people dying because it
Yep.
happens so often. It's horrible. And
Sad.
I
It's
don't,
like every time I open up Facebook, it's like, oh, somebody died. It's like, damn,
Yeah,
it sucks. And I pray for their family because I can't only imagine. But sometimes it's like, I get people to say like, do you not care? And it's like, I do, but do you know how much death I'm surrounded by?
yeah,
Like on a daily. I can, and just like you said, I had like 18 deaths of like all close friends in 1 year. And I'm like, you would think I would be numb, but I still like, I still feel like I'm not like this heartless person, like it still hurts. But then my pain goes to the family because it's like they don't, it's like the person that passed doesn't realize the pain that it comes to with them. The pain of them constantly out and about. And that's where I sit, is that I've lived with family that are addicts. Like everybody in my family was all an addict at one point in time. So it's like, I live that I'm the opposite in the life. I'm that one. I'd be your mother at home, like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't get this phone call. Like I deal with that on a daily, to this very day. I still deal with it, just hoping I don't get this phone call, because my life will be upside down. And it's like every day I pray that I don't get the phone call. And then I thank God at night that I never did, but still look after for these individuals. And it's just like I have to do stupid things to make sure that, I can stay in contact and to know that they're still breathing. Even if it's like a little Snapchat photo of me just being something silly and then I'm getting one back. Okay, you're still alive. That is all I'm looking for, is that you're still alive, because I haven't heard from you. And it's like,
yeah.
so that's where, I stem in. And so it's hard to sit there and watch it and see it all the time. And like I said, it's like every day I open up a Facebook and it's like, oh wow, like it's crazy. And then when I started here and I started posting, like, hey, this is what I do, and I started on the podcast, and they're like, you're great with talking to people. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm a talker anyways. I got this. I'm like,
Yeah.
I totally do it. And then throwing it out there, even on my personal, because I have two different accounts. One's for work, and then I have my personal. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw it out there. And I put it on my personal account, and to sit there and see so many people that I grew up with dealing and still dealing with the addiction, and hearing their story of like what they went through. And I'm just like, oh my God, I never knew. And they're just like, I thank you for doing what you do. And I just, started asking people if anybody wants to share their story. You have no idea who you can help. And it's just like amazing of how many people are like drawn to this. And I'm just like, I never knew. And I'm glad that people are like us out there that are willing to help and hear their story and, do what you do. You have that motorcycle group. That's amazing, because, for people that are in recovery and that's a passion of theirs, and instead of, having to join one of, the outlaws where there is drinking and drugs and all that other stuff, they can do it on a clean recovery basis. And that's amazing. I love that. And I love that you guys have that. And so with do you have to be in Oklahoma, or
Have
can
to
you,
be in Utah.
yeah, why don't I keep saying Oklahoma? You need to go to Oklahoma.
That's okay. Yeah, we'll meet for lunch in Oklahoma one of these
There we
days.
go.
Um,
So do they have to be in Utah in order to be part of it? Or like, for instance, if I wrote, hey, can I be a part of your thing and then meet you guys places? Is that something that you guys do or no?
we're getting there. Every area has its own set of motorcycle club politics.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, so we're a validated club right now in the state of Utah. There's nothing that prevents us from expanding. It's just a matter of just to kind of give like a brief overview. So to start a chapter of any organization, you have to have a president, vice president, sergeant at arms, and a secretary.
Yep.
And so it would take 4 members, and it would also take us, the leadership of this chapter would need to go out and sit with whoever the dominant club of the area is. Usually they operate within like a confederation of clubs.
Okay.
And so it's just, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but
So
there's
it's pretty much
actually
like an original club. Like, if they wanted to expand to Michigan, you got to make sure that you have somebody in the Michigan area and what area they're going to be in and make sure that's all around about.
correct. And
Okay.
and to prove just for like, you know, and it gives us a chance, like in a scenario like that, it's really about, hey, this is us, this is you, like let's sit down, have a conversation. Now when you see us on the road, you're not wondering who those guys are. You know what we're about, so we're not out there because people can do things that are very damaging to the culture as a whole.
Right.
And
Right.
it's something that we've never had any problems with that, of course, but it's just they like to, it's political, there's no doubt about that. But yeah, we will be expanding for sure,
Okay, that's awesome.
you know.
Now, Christian, before I let you go, is there w- tell me one thing that you can give our viewers that are still struggling, that are dealing with substance use abuse, mental illness. Like, is there something that you feel that you can give them to set off on the keynote of how to maintain, what kind of tools to use, and what to do to find the help that they need?
Well, if you're in Michigan, go to Live Right for sure.
Thank you for
Uh,
that.
yeah, I mean that will solve it. It's a one-stop shop. But I mean, there's always hope. We live in an era like, we got the opportunity to experiment during our era, right? Those days are over. Now it's just about staying alive till you die. That's what addiction has come to. Um, there's always hope. Um, there's many folks that are going through the same thing, and there's strength in numbers. But find a place to go, whether it's a 12-step fellowship, which is always a great place to start. In my personal opinion, I've had really good experiences in my own recovery. And then, connect with people that are you, but with a little bit of time under their belt, and follow the suggestions and learn how to live. Because that's part of what we do is teach each other how to live. So there's no sense in continuing. I mean, life's hard as it is, like we mentioned. There's no sense of making it harder. Um, Always don't be afraid to reach out and expose the idea that you could use some help if you need it, and give humanity a chance to come save you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Well, I will let you get going on your rainy day over there.
I appreciate it.
And I just want to say thank you so much for reaching back out to me and willing to do this podcast with me. I truly appreciate it. And thank you for all the insight. And hopefully, somebody can get something out of every conversation, any podcast of any kind of recovery, and just use or, take tools from each individual and create their own. So I do want to say thank you so much for joining me today. And what?
Yeah, I was just going to say
Oh,
thank you very much for having me.
absolutely. Thank you. And to everybody else, I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And like I said, take a little bit of each individual and create your own way to survive. And if you ever need a hand, don't ever be afraid to reach out. There's plenty of people out here. You have my boy over here, Christian. He's always there. Look them up on Facebook. But there's so many different resources and groups of inspiration in recovery. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out. But until then, you all have a blessed day.